Well, good morning, everyone, on this beautiful April morning in 2005. It's so wonderful to connect with all of you. My name is Jennifer Hutchins. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Association of Nonprofits, and you have arrived at MANP Connects. And today we're going to be talking about volunteer programs. We have three organizations, members of MANP, that are fabulous examples of how you leverage volunteers for your programming. And so we're going to talk to three of them and find out how they're doing. I think a lot has changed, or things were very different during the really intense years of the pandemic. Um, and so it's great to check in and see how folks are dealing with the major changes that are happening that impact their programs out in the world. And the other thing is just to highlight for a minute the fact that we are able to look at data that exists, and we collate a lot of data in our Adding Up Impact report that we issue every other year. And we did a new one this year. John, thank you for putting that right in our chat box. There's a link there. And we know from looking at other people's data and putting it into that report that in Maine, we have a high volunteer rate, and we have 1.3 million residents, and 400,000 of them are volunteering their time. So that's a really great high ratio. And the other thing to recognize there is that someone out there has done a great job of figuring out how to quantify that from a financial standpoint. And so the estimate is that's about $800 million worth of time and talent that's being put into our nonprofit organizations. And in a lot of ways, nonprofits have really become very professionalized over the years, which is great because we all know firsthand that nonprofits are taking up the work that requires really serious dedication to it as small businesses, as mission driven organizations that are out there doing great things for our communities. And many of them, we're going to start with Angela Stone from Maine Needs, I love the way it was described. I'm assuming, Angela, you described it as, uh, where did it say? Community fueled
Mhm.
was the term. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Community fueled. You have such a great story, having started as a Facebook group, and now you're moving into a new space, incredible growth. But so welcome and thank you for being here. It's really nice to meet you. I've known about Maine Needs since it started. I think I probably participated in a Facebook group at one point. What was one of the donors, having found that program. And so it's wonderful to have you here. But I was hoping we could just launch right in and have you talk about how you went about leveraging such a successful volunteer-led organization.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, and it's nice to meet you as well. And thank you for everybody who's showing up this morning, early this morning. I guess it's not that early anymore, but um, so yeah, I started as a Facebook group, sort of overnight, impulsively, and the goal of Main Needs is basically to meet the basic material needs of people going without things like clothing that fits and shoes and bedding, cleaning supplies, toiletries, tents, sleeping bags, diapers, strollers. And the goal in the Facebook group was to create a community, and to create sort of a bridge and a bulletin board between understanding what people were going without, why they were going without it, and where it was needed in order to reach those people. So the goal was honestly never to start a nonprofit. It was just to grow a community. And I think leading with that focus is what has grown our volunteer effort, is that, the goal is really to continue growing that safety net of having more people involved, more people participating. When I was looking to help, I called a bunch of different organizations, and it felt my oldest kids were 1 and 3 at the time, and it was really hard to figure out how to get in at the times when you needed to be trained, or the short windows of times that, volunteering was available. And so that's a big part of where we're at now is we want everybody to be able to show up and help if they want to show up and help. And so we're open now 6 days a week. We have 9 to 12 shifts and 12 to 3 shifts and 6 to 8 p.m. shifts and weekend. We're there on Sundays as well. So we try to make it really easy to show up. We did start completely volunteer run. It wasn't until I had my third child that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that we pulled in our first hire. I myself was hired this last July. So it has been
Wow.
volunteer run for the majority of time. We started in January 2019, became a nonprofit by October of 2020. Um, and we've used social media to leverage participation and the focus really has been to tell the story, the need of what people are going without and how you can help in very succinct, simple ways. And last year we brought in 2,500 unique volunteers. Um,
Wow.
and we have new volunteers literally every day. And we did just move into a new space. So we moved from 4,000 square feet to 16,000 square feet at the beginning of April. And now we're able to bring in a lot more volunteers in that space. We have more parking. Um, but I would say, social media is and telling the honest story, learning what people are going without and sharing that has been the root of what we do. Um, but I think social media in general is it's very viral. It's very um, interconnected, especially Instagram. Like you can share a post on Instagram, and if it pulls at someone's, heart or their interest, they share it, and then they share like somebody else shares it. And that's we sort of just put it out there, and that's what's
Mhm.
allowed things to grow.
Yeah, I have so many questions, but one of the things just because I'm trying to imagine what some of the questions might be from our folks who are listening in. And by the way, everybody who's listening, if you have a question, feel free to type it in chat. Um, but can you talk a little bit about a couple of your lessons learned, like what a couple of the challenges that popped up for you or continue to pop up for you and how you're addressing them?
Yeah, I think I think one thing is we did it a little backwards in a lot of ways. I think we decided to just full on trust complete strangers. We don't do like a full training. We don't do the full like or an extensive training, I should say. We don't do background checks. We honestly gave the key code and the key to like our first establishment pretty early. And so I think trusting in people and giving people more autonomy in their role as a volunteer has also been really important to how people feel in the space. If you feel like, okay, I actually am really needed here, and I have a specific role that I'm bringing to this, and like my skills and my experience are valued, I think that's, um, like I feel like a lot of advice out there is to like make sure everything is like fine tuned. Um, and I think we went sort of the opposite way where we're like, if you want to help, we're going to believe that you can help. Um, and I think that has mostly been a success. We have had, um, issues like because we're a donation center, so we have a lot of gently used items and new items. We have had issues in terms of people coming in and volunteering and also wanting to shop. Um, so we've had to, you know, thoroughly explain that over the years. Um,
Hmm.
we've also had we have a lot of special needs groups that come in that they need to come in with somebody who is working with them and able to support them and assist them. Um, when they've come in alone, that's like that's a heavy lift, if you will, for the volunteers who are also like volunteer leaders. Um, so yeah, I think it's just every step of the way that we've had um, an issue come up, it's just addressing it and being honest with people. This is mostly volunteer run. It was entirely volunteer run for a while. Um, and it's still very much, we have now 7 employees, but 2,500 volunteers. So the volunteers are really a huge support. Um, and so making sure that those things are communicated just this week in our new space, I think because we have more space, people are now just showing up. So not registering online, like putting in their name, their email, their phone number. Um, so we don't have like their contacts if they just show up. So,
Hmm.
I think last night we posted something and sent it out via email to our volunteers, like, please keep in mind you need to register ahead of time. So I think even now there's still, there's room for improvement always. Um, but it's just figuring out the way to communicate the why behind what we're doing.
And what I hear you saying too, Angela, is establishing, this, as you said, it started very organically, and I remember being part of that Facebook group, um, and how it started from a very trusting culture, right? Like you could tell the feeling, and it started from a very specific need that you tapped into on a personal level, but that many of us were witnessing in terms of new immigrants coming to our communities and not particularly mothers, right? And not having what they needed to take care of their young children. And so there was a very passionate reason why people wanted to be part of this, right? And so it sounds to me like, and having volunteered at Maine Needs, the our Maine Association of Nonprofits staff team came and spent a day helping at the original location a couple of years ago, and I could just tell that you set up a very careful culture of respect and clarity of communication, right? I just remember seeing on the wall, even the feeling that you got being there as a volunteer, it was clear what expectations were, but it was done in a way of mutual respect and trust. Does
Yes.
that resonate?
Yes, and I love hearing you say that. I think that so much of Maine Needs is a response to heartbreak. Seeing what's happening in the world, seeing what people are going without, and like leaning into that, not being consumed by it or drained by it, but being fueled by and inspired by, like, okay, what can we do about it? Um, and so I do think that leading with the sort of the emotional side of it has been one, it's the only way I know how to exist in the world. Um, but I think it also helps us to connect to people through their heart. Um, and I think the story, the goal was always like get things from point A to point B. But what came of that is also breaking down these like walls of division and putting people in boxes where we label them as like one demographic or another demographic, and starting to like see everybody wakes up in the morning and wants to like brush their teeth and wants to, put on clothes that fit and shoes that fit and clean underwear and be able to wash their dishes and their clothes. And I think in telling that story, like it opens up people to get involved and to lean in from a place of respect and genuine care. And I think that's I was invited. The organization that called me back was Maine Access Immigrant Network when I reached out to see how I could help. And they are run by mostly former asylum seekers and former refugees. And they invited me in and like set me down. And I was no one important. I had no experience in the world of nonprofit or social work or volunteering or anything like that. My background's interior design. And they full on welcomed me in, and I was like, I don't know how to help, but I want to help. And like everybody that works there was at the table, which I thought was so amazing and something that I can't even imagine as a nonprofit being able to offer every time someone wanted to volunteer. But um, they made me feel like it didn't matter that I had no experience. They made me feel like it didn't matter what my education background was, that if I wanted to help, I could help. And that really stuck with me. I feel like they gave me a new path in life, truly, in that moment by just saying, like, you want to help? Great, come help. And so that's what we try to be at Maine Needs is anybody who wants to help, like you can help, what no matter where you're at. We posted last week a mother with a sleeping 1-year-old in a like a rolling cart at our new space. If you have young kids and you want to help, if you're retired and you want to help, if you yourself are a young kid, um, and want to fill requests or fundraise, that, I want a space where everybody comes together. And I think you also have so many different types of people and perspectives and personalities coming together in one space, and what we can learn from each other by just existing in one space together has been something that I didn't plan for, but am very happy to be part of. Um, so yeah, we have a real open door policy, and I think that's why we don't have our issue right now from a volunteer standpoint is we have our volunteer program manager gets like over 10 emails a day asking, how can I get into a shift? Because the shifts are full. Um,
Wow.
and I think that really comes from the fact that we do lead from a place, like from an emotional place, from the heart, and from wanting the world to be better than it is, and wanting a community that shows up in various ways. And you said, like, you were talking about how have we handled challenges since the pandemic. Like, we actually started during the pandemic, which I didn't mean to have, I didn't mean for that to be our beginning. But we all started with masks, like I didn't know what anybody's mouth looked like for the first
Yeah.
couple of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think trust, and also the owner of Maine Access Immigrant Network, Mohammed, he said that at Maine, they move at the speed of trust. And I'll never forget
Yeah.
him saying that. And I thought, okay, well, we need to move fast. And I want to I want this to grow quickly, and I want to reach as many people as we can quickly. So let's just trust right out of the gate.
Wow.
It hasn't been that hasn't been a bad thing. So
That's great. Wow. That's an inspiring story, Angela. You've done an incredible job. Thank you. It's wonderful that you've been able to create such a powerful organization. And I'm just so grateful that you're leading with such authenticity and compassion. So I'm really proud that you're in our Maine community. So thank you so much. And I have so many more questions for you. And I need to move on to our other two guests. So
thank you.
I can't thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we've included Maine Needs in the chat in case you want to learn more about Maine Needs. Next, I want to talk to Joy Fehl from Curtis Memorial Library. That's my hometown library. Joy, are you here to chat with me this morning?
I am here. Welcome.
Great.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So talk to us a little bit about I've heard wonderful things about the Curtis Memorial Library. Fun fact, my mom was a volunteer at the Curtis Memorial Library.
Goodness, in your
Tell us a
blood.
little bit. Yeah, exactly. I was a little kid getting books out of the Curtis Memorial Library. Tell us a little bit about what makes your volunteer program unique, please.
Yeah, well, Curtis serves the 25,000 residents of Brunswick and Harpswell. This is our 143rd year.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes,
Wow.
we have one location here on 23 Pleasant Street in Brunswick, and 2 years ago, we also launched our all-electric bookmobile that helps us reach neighborhoods formerly underserved, and also get out into the community at farmers markets and community events and things like that. Our program, you might think of volunteer opportunities at a library shelving books, and that was certainly the case 20 some odd years ago when largely the library was a place where you would come in, get a book, and leave. That's not the library of today. We have almost 1,000 visitors a day come through this building.
Wow.
When about 20 years ago, when technology was coming more into the building, the needs of the community were more program focused. At that time, our volunteer program was managed by our Curtis Friends group. Many public libraries have friends groups. There have different objectives, but ours was always a group that advocated for the library and the community, did some fundraising, and obviously did a lot of volunteer work for the library. We had someone from the Friends who was managing the volunteer program at the library. But at that time, the technology needs were changing, the needs of the community. Our librarians started doing a lot more programming, both in the library and outside in the community. And it became much for the Friends to volunteer, to coordinate all of those volunteers. And so we hired our first part-time volunteer coordinator then.
Mm.
And, then I would say probably we had maybe, back then, maybe 5 to 10 volunteer jobs. Today we have over 41 volunteer tasks. And those range from everything to from shelving books to pulling holds from interlibrary loan to interior garden volunteers to fire tenders. We have a beautiful fireplace in our original library, and 3 days a week during the season, we have fires in that building, and we have volunteers who tend the fires throughout the day.
Wow.
Obviously, board members, we have committees. 11 years ago, we started a contemporaries group, trying to get younger people involved in the library. They're also
Mm.
an advocacy group. They throw a wonderful fundraising party once a year. We just had it 2 weeks ago and had over 300 people attend.
Oh, great.
Um,
Congratulations.
we have master carpenters who volunteer, painters.
Well,
Um,
tell us a little bit about your repair care program, that really cool partnership that you have. No, Repair Cafe. I read that wrong.
Yeah, so a few years ago, our library became certified as a sustainable library, and we really embrace the repair movement. Repair it, don't throw it away. It's so a few years ago, last year, I think we started a repair cafe as an outcrop of our library of things. We also lend lots of things that you can borrow instead of buy, or borrow, and if you really like it, then you can go buy it instead of having,
Wow. So it's not just borrowing books anymore.
exactly. And so the Repair Cafe, we engage volunteers in the community who are skilled in particular tasks. Jewelry makers, jewelry repair people, small electric repairs, lamp repairs, small wooden repairs, knife sharpening. We've always had book repair volunteers at the library, and now they're part of the Repair Cafe as well.
Oh,
So this is a program that right now rotates between our library, the patent-free library in Bath, and the Restore up in Bath as part of the Habitat Humanity. So it's a
oh, very
nice
cool.
way to collaborate with other organizations and libraries in the community. And we all share the same volunteers, and they just rotate between those 3 entities. So
And so what's the cafe part of it? Is there a community aspect to it? How does it work?
yeah, so the community brings their broken items, and the Repair Cafe volunteers will not only repair it, but they'll also teach people how they can repair it.
Oh, wow.
If it's something that
Wonderful.
they want to take on themselves. So it's really
Yeah.
a sort of a skill building opportunity as well. And of course, the volunteers are amazing teachers and advocates that way.
Yeah, wonderful. So now I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about how your volunteer program works kind of on a practical level. Do you have actually, it was a question that came in from one of our registrants. Do you have what's the industry using for tools to manage volunteers? Do you have a special software? And then just a little bit about the technical back end of managing that many volunteers. I mean, sounds complicated to me.
Yeah. Well, we have a wonderful volunteer coordinator, Rachel Cabasa, and we use a program called Logistics. And this is
Okay.
a program that allows us to both, intake volunteers through an online and then an in-person interview process,
Hmm.
and then schedule volunteers. So I think last year we had um, we have about 186 active volunteers right now. Last year,
Hmm.
they donated over 7,000 hours of volunteer time. About
Hmm.
2/3 of that was book shelving and book pulling. So that is the majority of the work here. And so there is sort of a general, schedule that goes out every week, and then we're able to automate that through the Logistics program. And then there are sort of, one-off things that happen, special events. And so we're able to both, using that logistics program, we're able to sort of advertise. If we have specific opportunity, we know we're able to, categorize folks that if they are interested, maybe they are a book shelver, but they're also interested in doing mailings or helping out at special events. We can tag folks and then sort of project out to them. We have these particular opportunities. So it's a nifty little program. And
Hmm.
allows us to also, we're in a community where there's lots of retirees, and some of them are here for the summer months and then go away for the winter months. So we're able to, sort of silo them for a period of time and then bring folks back. So it's a great little program.
What would you say is one of the challenges of having, like, can you identify a challenge or two that is involved in a successful volunteer program and how you have managed that?
I think that, I think what we've done really well is, libraries are great listeners, and I will say that, people come in to the library and they might have a specific idea of what they're interested in doing. Um, and what has been really successful is just listening to folks as we've gotten to know them. Um, Someone who came in, a gentleman who came in as a bookshelver, um, let us know that he was really gifted with, technology and training. And so at the library, we have 3 staff members who will do tech appointments. So you can book a 30-minute time with a librarian to say, you need to know how to sync your iPhone with your iPad or whatever it might be. This particular volunteer, we vetted him, and we found out that he was gifted in doing that. So we were able to sort of slot him into doing sort of a job that, someone that might free up a librarian to help somebody else. So that's an amazing
Right.
opportunity to be able to do that. I think that I would say that the library of 20 years ago is not the library of today. And sometimes people come in thinking that it's going to be a completely quiet environment, and it's not. I mean, we do have our original building is a quiet location, but there's so much activity happening in here. And we are able to listen. There are some people who just want to come in and shelve books and then leave, and that's absolutely fine. There are others who this is their social opportunity of the week, and they want to partner up with somebody and shelf books and then go get a cup of coffee together. And I think that's the beauty of a community space like a library, that we listen, we meet people where they are, and we have we love seeing the spin-off from these wonderful, relationships that happen here. I see it all the time.
That's great. Thank you so much. I am going to have to move on to our next guest, but thank you so much, Joy, for taking the
Thank you.
time. And before you go, I just want to take this moment to give a shout out to our libraries folks in the state of Maine. Probably most of us on this call know that there's a lot of changes happening in the federal government that is putting a lot of strain on our nonprofits broadly. But in particular, right now, our libraries are being cut back in their funding from our federal government. And we have a tremendous system of libraries here in the state, overseen or connected through the Maine State Libraries. And I just want to take this moment to say, reach out to your local library and ask how you can help, because it's a stressful time right now for our libraries, that we're really leveraging some federal support to make sure that we can keep these community services in our communities. So thank you, Joy, for all you do. And my heart goes out to all of our fabulous libraries here in Maine right now.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah. So our last guest is Laure Johnson. She's from SeniorsPlus. Hi, Laure. How are you?
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. So we're going to take a little bit different turn. We started with Maine Needs, which was started in Facebook during the pandemic and has grown really fast. All volunteer to their first executive director. We have a library in Brunswick that's providing tremendous amount of community services. And now we've welcomed Laure Johnson from SeniorsPlus in the Lewiston area. And can you tell us briefly, Laure, what is the mission of SeniorsPlus? And you've heard from Angela and Joy already about how many volunteers they use. Could you give us a sense of how you use volunteers at SeniorsPlus?
Yes, absolutely. So
Thank you.
SeniorsPlus is what they call an area agency on aging. And in the state of Maine, there are 5 of us, and we all cover different counties. SeniorsPlus covers Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford counties. And our mission, in essence, is to keep people in their homes for as long as possible, as safely as possible, as long as that's their goal too. And as far as our programs, we have a slew of them. So I'll try to be as concise as possible. There are some programs and services that we offer that we definitely utilize volunteers. And then obviously there's some things that we do that are staff-based only. So the first thing that we do is what we call information and assistance. So part of our job is to know resources within the 3 counties that we cover. So people call, they have questions about resources. Sometimes it's a quick, oh, you need to call Western Maine Transportation. But then there's some people that need help actually accessing the resource. Like they might need help making the phone calls, filling out paperwork, filling out an application, whatever it is. So not only do we give resource information, but we help people access the resource if that's a need. Other pieces of information and assistance is screening people for state benefits to see if they're eligible, and if so, helping them apply. Navigating complex systems like the long-term care system in the state of Maine, or somebody living at home, but they're looking to transition into a facility. What does that look like? How do I start that process? So that's our information and assistance, and that's primarily staff that do that work. Another big one that we do is Medicare counseling, and this is a combination of staff and volunteers. And this is just helping people navigate the complex web of Medicare. So whether you're new to it or you've had it for a long time, but things have changed, and you just need help with everything Medicare, we have staff and volunteers that have gone through a training and a certification process to be able to counsel people on their options. We have our caregiver programs. We have a respite program, we have support groups, we have trainings, and our caregiver programs, the purpose of them is to support caregivers, give them tools that they need for their caregiving journey, and give them access to resources that can help. We have a Money Minders program. This program is beside the coordination of the program, it is strictly volunteer based. And what that is we have volunteers that go into people's homes or meet them in their community, whatever their preference is, and just help them with creating a basic budget and then making sure that their bills are getting paid accurately and on time. So heavily utilize volunteers in our Money Minders program. We have a friendly caller program. And again, that is primarily volunteer based. And that is where volunteers are just making phone calls to people on a weekly basis to check in and chat with them. And then last but not least is our nutrition program. So Meals on Wheels, I'm sure everybody's heard of Meals on Wheels. That is a program where we utilize the most of our volunteers, where we have them delivering for us, because, you know, we deliver throughout the 3 counties that we cover, and we're in Western Maine, very rural, and it might take us an entire half a day to get up to Eustis and back. So the frequency of our delivery is heavily reliant on our volunteers. And then also in nutrition, we have social dining sites where we're having people gather and we're bringing food. We rely on volunteers to help us with that process and our social dining sites. And then we also have an around town program where we're partnered with local restaurants. So volunteers for SeniorsPlus, they're literally the backbone of what we do. We could not do what we do at the capacity that we do it without our volunteers. And of course,
how many do you have?
Right now we have around 105.
And do you need more?
We do. More? We always need more. Yes.
Okay.
I would say, you know, pre-pandemic, we had around like between 300 and 400 volunteers, and then the pandemic hit, and we really got hit. We really got hit, and trying to build up that volunteer base again has been pretty difficult, honestly. But we're getting there.
Why do you think that is? Is it just because people? I would have thought that maybe they got out of practice, or why do you think that there hasn't been a return of those volunteers?
Well, I think that there's a combination of reasons. I think a lot of older adults have returned back to work because of financial need. I think that that's a big one. I think that a big barrier, and I'll speak to this a little bit again later, but a big barrier is people just don't know what opportunities are available or how to go about getting involved. And another barrier, I think, is people think that they just don't have enough time. And, you know, what we've tried to do to overcome that is just be really specific about what our needs are, you know. So say we make a flyer because we need a volunteer to do Meals on Wheels delivery in Franklin County. Well, if it just says we need Meals on Wheels delivery drivers in Franklin County, people might just be like, I probably can't accommodate that. But if we're specific about it and we say, we need somebody that lives in Farmington that can deliver meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 12, you might look at that and be like, I can do that, right? So being really specific about what the needs are, and also letting people know that we're flexible. You know, there's a lot of the things that we do that I mean, to be honest, we'll take what we can get. If you can just come for a couple hours once a week, then great. You know, it's their schedule and the amount of time that they're spending in many of our opportunities is up to them. So.
Well, and that's a theme that both Angela and Joy said, right, is being really good listeners and starting with this message that Angela had of, okay, working at the speed of trust, let's trust quickly and be really clear. So what are the channels that you use? I'm assuming you're not in a situation where you can just wait for people to come to you. So what are some of the channels that you're using to get the word out? Like, if you were advising someone to build their volunteer program, what are some of the key areas you'd say, well, look into Volunteer Maine, for example?
So we did a deep dive in all of our volunteer programs. I think it was a little over a year ago now. And we surveyed all of our volunteers, all of our staff, specifically staff that are supervising volunteers to just get feedback. What is it that we can do better? What is it that you need for support? What are the barriers? And mostly we're doing really, really well, but there are definitely room for improvement, right? So one of the things that we've done is we have a staff person that is focused on volunteer recruitment and marketing, and we're hitting all of the channels, all social media platforms, LinkedIn, our website, our newsletters. But what we have found, honestly, is the majority of our volunteers are coming to us from word of mouth, from our current volunteer base, sharing their experience and bringing people in that way has been the best way for us to get reliable, good volunteers.
Right, great. And I know I'm really speeding up but
Okay.
I always promise everybody that we end right on time. So, and then it was a question that came in, and but do you have a particular tool that you use to manage all those volunteers? Do you guys do you use the same system as Joy by chance?
We do. We use
Oh,
logistics,
okay.
yes. And
Okay.
as far as like the process to getting volunteers onboarded, it's kind of a mixed bag. So it starts with people apply, if they apply online, it goes to our logistics system. There's a person in our HR department that is reading those applications, calling people, talking to them about what their interests might be. And once we solidify what program is probably the best fit, then we're having the volunteer talk with the person that would be primarily supervising them in that role, and really getting into the details of what it entails. Like, this is the required training. This is how often you need to do the training. This is what we're looking for as far as a schedule. And just making sure that they're really clear on what it is that we're looking for. And then if everybody's decided that, yep, this is a good fit, then we have, required trainings and agency orientation, and a supervisor that is checking in with them on a daily basis, scheduling team meetings, like all of our Money Minders volunteers will get together and talk about what's going well, what's not going well. And then we also have an evaluation component to it so that they know how they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's near and dear to our heart here at MANP, because we do board trainings, and most board members are volunteers, right? And so we talk about how important it is to do board self-assessments, right? And really tapping into this idea of the heart of why you're doing this. So it's so interesting to me to see some of these themes bubbling up. Laure, there are people who are asking questions about how you chose logistics, and Joy's already offering an answer. But then another person has said that I have several elderly housing communities and would love to connect with you to discuss some outreach opportunities. So is that okay? I'm putting you a bit on the spot.
No,
Okay.
yes, please reach out. Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So I apologize, but this is always the problem with MANP Connects. We always have more to talk about, but I need to stick to my promise that I'll get you all out of here. So thank you, Laure, and thank you again, Joy and Angela. Tremendous information, tremendous programs. And I'm going out on a limb again, but I would recommend that you contact these folks and their organizations if you want to learn more. Quickly, I need to make sure you all know that next month on MANP Connects, we're going to be talking about technology for nonprofits, specifically, primarily AI. We're going to start going into that topic just to get an overview of how nonprofits are starting to use AI to their advantage. And so join us then. Also, we have announced, just yesterday, we announced our in-person community forums as I mentioned already, and I should also say our area agencies on aging are also under a lot of strain due to the significant cuts that are coming from the federal government. So we have a response to the executive actions that are happening in Washington and their impact on Maine nonprofits. And part of that strategy is giving all of you an opportunity to meet in person with us to talk about some of those impacts. And so our first one, we're going all the way up to Aroostook County, and on May 15th, we're going to be having a community forum at the Aroostook Area Agency on Aging, which is very fun. And John has just put those links. Presque Isle's first, Rockland is second at the Strand Theaters, sponsored by our friends at First National Bank, which is really nice of them to provide us an opportunity to meet. So, and that one's on May 28th. So please join us if you can. We will be later in the year having in-person community forums in Southern Maine and in the Western. We're going to be targeting Western Maine as well. So if you can't make it to those, there should be other opportunities that are closer to you coming up in the future. It is 9:46, so I gotta go, but I have to thank our friends at Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare because they have been sponsoring MANP Connects from the very beginning, and they're tremendous. And so thank you to our friends at Harvard Pilgrim. Thank you, John. And you all have a really wonderful weekend. I hope you get out and get some of that beautiful Maine nature to keep us all grounded. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.